Before you scroll, if you've been carrying a quiet pressure that never really leaves, even in moments that are supposed to feel calm, stay here for a second, because this message is reaching you at the exact moment you need it. There's a kind of exhaustion that doesn't come from doing too much in one day, but from living too long in a state of what if. What if something goes wrong? What if things fall apart again? What if you relax for just a moment and everything you've been holding together starts to slip through your hands? And so, you don't fully relax. Even when you sit down, your mind keeps moving. Even when things are temporarily okay, a part of you is already preparing for the next problem. It's like your body forgot what it feels like to feel safe, because for so long you had to stay alert just to get through. You learned how to survive, how to stretch what you had, how to keep going even when you were tired, how to carry responsibility without knowing when it would get lighter. And maybe no one fully saw that. They saw you functioning, showing up, handling things. But they didn't see the quiet tension underneath it all, the constant calculation, the emotional weight of always needing to be ready for something unexpected. Because survival mode doesn't always look dramatic. Sometimes it looks like you being strong for too long. And the hardest part is, when you've lived like this for a while, it starts to feel normal. The pressure, the overthinking, the inability to fully rest, it becomes your baseline, even though it was never meant to be. You might even feel uncomfortable when things are calm, like you're waiting for something to go wrong, like peace is just a temporary pause before the next wave hits. But listen closely. That constant state of tension, it was never your permanent reality. It was a season where you had to build resilience, where you had to learn how to hold yourself together in ways you never thought you could. And you did, even when it was heavy, even when it felt unfair, even when you didn't know how much longer you could keep going. You kept going. But just because you learned how to survive doesn't mean you're meant to stay there. And if you've been feeling something shifting lately, something subtle but different, like a quiet slowing down, like things aren't as urgent as they used to feel, like you're being invited to exhale just a little more, that's not your imagination. That's the beginning of something changing. Because in the next part, we're going to gently step into what's happening behind the scenes, the quiet turning point that doesn't arrive with noise or sudden change, but with something far more stable. Something that doesn't demand your survival, but supports your peace.
There's a shift that doesn't announce itself loudly. It doesn't arrive with sudden breakthroughs or dramatic changes that force you to stop and notice. Instead, it moves quietly, almost beneath your awareness, like the tide slowly changing direction long before the waves begin to look different. And that may be exactly where you are right now. Because if you pay close attention, something has already begun to soften. The urgency that once lived in your chest doesn't feel as sharp. The constant pressure to figure everything out all at once, it's not as loud as it used to be. There are small moments, maybe fleeting, where you catch yourself not bracing for the worst. And those moments matter more than you think. Because stability doesn't arrive all at once. It forms gradually, through subtle changes, through doors opening without force, through things falling into place in ways that don't require you to exhaust yourself just to keep them moving. You might notice it in practical ways. A situation that once felt uncertain begins to settle. A decision becomes clearer without endless overthinking. An opportunity appears that feels aligned rather than forced. Nothing overwhelming, but enough to make you pause and think, maybe things are starting to shift. And they are. But here's the part that can feel unfamiliar. When you've lived in survival mode for so long, calm progress can feel almost unreal. You might question it, wonder if it's temporary, if something is about to go wrong again. Your mind may try to stay ahead, to anticipate problems that haven't even appeared. But this time, the movement is different. This isn't about rushing forward or scrambling to keep up. This is about things aligning in a way that supports you instead of constantly testing you. The season of constant pressure, it's not meant to last forever. And what you've been through wasn't random. It built something within you: awareness, resilience, discernment. But now, those same qualities are no longer being used just to survive. They're being used to help you recognize stability when it finally arrives. So instead of overlooking these small shifts, allow yourself to notice them. That moment of unexpected calm, that decision that feels clear without struggle, that opportunity that doesn't require you to prove yourself just to access it. These are signs, not loud ones, but real ones. Because the tide isn't turning in a way that overwhelms you. It's turning in a way that supports you. And maybe the most important part of all, you don't have to force this change. You don't have to chase it, control it, or overanalyze every step. The more you try to grip it tightly, the more your old patterns of survival try to take over again. Instead, this season asks for something different. It asks you to allow, to notice without immediately questioning, to receive without preparing for loss, to trust, even if just a little, that not everything ahead is meant to be difficult. Because what's forming right now, it's not temporary relief, it's a foundation. A slower, steadier kind of progress that doesn't rely on urgency, but on alignment. And in the next part, we're going to gently shift your understanding of what this actually means, because abundance, the kind that is entering your life, may not look the way you were taught to expect, but it will feel exactly like what you've been needing all along.
There's a version of abundance that you were taught to chase, one that looked loud, fast, and overwhelming. Something that promised to change everything overnight. Something that felt like a finish line, where all your worries would suddenly disappear. And for a long time, maybe you held on to that image, believing that one day, everything would just click into place all at once. But what if that was never the kind of abundance your life was meant to hold? Because the truth is, the kind of abundance that lasts doesn't arrive like a storm. It doesn't flood your life with intensity just to leave you trying to manage the weight of it afterward. It arrives quietly, in ways that don't shock your system, but instead begin to soothe it. Abundance, real abundance, feels like safety. It feels like waking up without that immediate sense of pressure sitting in your chest. It feels like making decisions without fear guiding every step. It feels like being in your own space, your home, your environment, your mind, and not feeling like you're constantly trying to hold everything together. It's not just about money. It's about peace. It's about stability. It's about knowing that you don't have to live in a constant state of what if anymore. And I know, a part of you might still be wired to look for something bigger, something more dramatic, something that proves that things have truly changed. But the deeper truth is, the most meaningful shifts don't need to prove themselves loudly. They show up in how you feel, in the way your body begins to relax without you forcing it, in the way your thoughts become clearer without constant effort, in the way your days start to feel more grounded, even if nothing looks drastically different on the outside. Because abundance isn't just about what you gain, it's about what you no longer have to carry. The constant worry, the emotional tension, the feeling that everything could fall apart at any moment. When those begin to fade, even slowly, that's not something small. That's everything changing at its core. And this is where your understanding begins to shift. Because instead of chasing a version of life that overwhelms you, you start to recognize the value of a life that supports you. A life where things make sense, where your effort is met with stability, where your environment feels like a place you can finally rest, not just physically, but emotionally. That's abundance. Not loud, not chaotic, not something you have to fight to maintain, but something that holds you gently, consistently, in a way that allows you to finally exhale. And in the next part, we're going to step into what that feels like in your body, in your daily life, because learning to receive this kind of peace isn't always automatic, especially when you've spent so long preparing for the opposite.
There's something almost unfamiliar about peace when you haven't felt it in a long time. Not because it's uncomfortable in a painful way, but because your body doesn't quite know what to do with it at first. You've spent so much time bracing, preparing, staying alert, that when things begin to soften, a part of you is still waiting for the tension to return. And that's where this next phase begins, not in your circumstances, but in your body. Because even when stability starts to form around you, your system may still be holding on to old patterns. Your shoulders might stay slightly tense without you noticing. Your jaw might remain clenched, as if it's still trying to hold something together. Your breathing, shallow, quick, always just a little restricted. Not because anything is wrong now, but because your body remembers when things weren't okay. So learning to receive peace starts with something very simple: allowing yourself to breathe again. Not in a forced way, not in a way that feels like you're trying to fix something, but in a quiet, intentional way that reminds your body it's safe to let go. You might not even realize how long you've been holding your breath in small, subtle ways, waiting, anticipating, preparing. But right now, nothing is chasing you. Nothing is demanding that same level of urgency. And slowly, your body can begin to understand that. You can soften your shoulders without needing a reason. You can unclench your jaw without something going wrong. You can sit in a moment without immediately thinking about what's next. These aren't small things. They're signals. Signals that your system is beginning to shift out of survival and into something steadier. And I know, there may still be moments where the old tension returns. Moments where your mind starts racing again, where your body tightens without warning, where you feel that familiar urge to prepare for something that hasn't happened. But when that happens, don't fight it. Just notice it. And then gently bring yourself back, not to the past, not to the what-ifs, but to what is actually here, right now. Because this moment, it's quieter, it's safer. It's not asking you to survive it. It's inviting you to experience it. And the more you allow yourself to stay present in these quieter moments, the more your body begins to trust them, the more it learns that peace is not a temporary pause, but something that can actually remain. This is how the transition happens, not through sudden change, but through repeated, gentle reminders that you don't have to hold everything so tightly anymore. You don't have to carry the same weight. You don't have to anticipate every possible outcome. You don't have to stay in a constant state of readiness just to feel in control. Control, in this new season, looks different. It looks like trust. Trust that what's meant for you will continue to align without you forcing it. Trust that stability doesn't need to be chased, it can be received. Trust that your life is no longer built on urgency, but on something much more sustainable. And as you continue to breathe, not just physically, but emotionally, something begins to settle within you. A quiet understanding that you're no longer where you used to be. And in the next part, we're going to talk about how to protect this, how to hold on to this sense of peace without letting old patterns or outside chaos pull you back into what you've already outgrown.
There's a moment after you begin to feel a sense of stability again, where something subtle but important becomes your responsibility. Not in a heavy way, not in a way that brings pressure back into your life, but in a quiet, intentional way that asks you to protect what you finally found. Because peace, once it enters your life, doesn't ask to be chased, it asks to be respected. And this is where many people, without realizing it, begin to slip back into old patterns, not because they want chaos again, but because they haven't yet learned how to recognize what disrupts their peace before it fully returns. You might notice it in small ways at first, allowing conversations that leave you feeling drained, saying yes to things that immediately create tension in your body, reopening doors that once led you into the very exhaustion you worked so hard to move away from. It doesn't happen all at once. It happens quietly, through small compromises that slowly add up. And that's why this phase matters so much. Because now, you're not just experiencing peace, you're learning how to hold it.
And holding peace requires something that may feel new, boundaries that are rooted not in fear, but in clarity. Clarity about what supports you, clarity about what drains you, clarity about what you are no longer available for, even if it once felt familiar. This doesn't mean shutting people out. It means becoming intentional about what you allow in. Because your environment, your space, your energy, it's no longer a place where anything can enter without consideration. It's something you've rebuilt, something that has taken time, awareness, and quiet strength to create, and it deserves to be protected. So when something doesn't feel right, you don't ignore it anymore. You don't override that subtle discomfort just to keep things smooth or avoid conflict. You listen, you pause, you choose differently. And I know there may still be moments where you feel the pull of what's familiar, the old patterns, the old dynamics, the old ways of responding that once felt automatic. But now you have something you didn't have before, awareness. And that awareness changes everything, because now you can recognize the difference between what feels peaceful and what simply feels familiar. And those two things, they are not the same. Familiarity can pull you back into cycles that look comfortable on the surface, but carry the same underlying tension you've already moved through. Peace, on the other hand, feels steady. It doesn't rush you, it doesn't pressure you, it doesn't require you to sacrifice your sense of self just to maintain it. So protecting your peace isn't about building walls. It's about making choices, small, consistent choices that honor the life you're stepping into, instead of the one you've already outgrown. And as you continue to make those choices, something strengthens within you, a quiet confidence, not loud, not forceful, but steady. The kind of confidence that doesn't need to prove anything, because it's rooted in knowing what feels right for you and trusting yourself enough to choose it. And in the final part, we're going to bring all of this together, not as something distant or abstract, but as something you can carry with you into tomorrow, a grounded sense of gratitude that allows you to fully receive what's already entering your life.
There's a quiet shift that happens when you stop bracing for what could go wrong and begin to notice what is already going right. Not in a loud, overwhelming way, not as some sudden moment where everything becomes perfect, but in small, steady realizations that something in your life is finally supporting you instead of testing you. And this is where gratitude begins to feel different. Not forced, not something you say just to stay positive, but something that rises naturally from a place within you that recognizes the change, even if it's still unfolding. Because when you've lived in survival mode for so long, your mind was trained to scan for problems, to focus on what's missing, to prepare for what might fall apart. That awareness helped you get through difficult seasons, but now it's gently being asked to shift, to notice what's here. The moments of calm that no longer feel rare, the decisions that don't carry the same weight of fear, the sense that even if everything isn't perfect, it's no longer unstable. And that awareness, it becomes grounding. Because gratitude in this season of your life isn't about ignoring challenges. It's about recognizing that you are no longer defined by them. You're no longer in a place where everything feels uncertain, where every step forward feels fragile, where peace feels temporary. You've moved into something steadier, something that doesn't demand constant effort just to maintain itself. And the more you allow yourself to feel that, the more it deepens. Not because you're trying to hold on to it, but because you're finally allowing yourself to receive it. You might even notice something subtle, the way your thoughts soften when you wake up, the way your body doesn't immediately tense at the start of a new day, the way your space begins to feel like somewhere you can truly rest. That's not small. That's everything changing, quietly. And in this space, gratitude becomes something you carry, not something you chase. It becomes a way of seeing, a way of being, a way of walking into your days without the same fear that once followed you. So instead of asking, what if it all goes wrong? You begin to ask, what if it continues to go right? Not in a naive way, but in a grounded, steady trust that your life is no longer built on instability, that you are supported even in ways you don't fully see yet, that what's entering your life now, it's not here to test you, it's here to hold you. And maybe the most important part of all, you don't have to earn this. You don't have to prove that you deserve peace.
You don't have to keep surviving just to justify receiving something better. You've already walked through enough. You've already learned what you needed to learn. And now, this season is different. This season allows you to live, not just endure. So as you move forward from here, you don't need to rush. You don't need to question every step. You don't need to carry that same weight into tomorrow. Just walk gently. Notice what's already changing. Let yourself feel supported, even if it's new. And if this message found you at the right moment, you don't have to say much. Just a quiet acknowledgement, maybe even to yourself, that you're ready to receive what no longer requires you to struggle for it. Because this time, it's not about survival, it's about peace.